Have you ever wondered what happens to someone after they betray the very trust that held a relationship together? Today we're diving into a truth that's often hidden in the shadows, a truth about the silent pain narcissists endure after their own betrayal. It's easy to assume they feel nothing, isn't it? But the reality is far more complex, and understanding it could be your key to freedom and clarity. Stay with me, because what you'll hear today might just change how you see them and yourself forever. Narcissists live behind a carefully constructed facade, a shield crafted from manipulation, charm, and control. This facade is not just a means to an end for them, it is their identity, their sanctuary. When they betray someone, they might appear unaffected, indifferent, or even emboldened by their actions. But that's a deception, a shallow performance meant to project power and dominance. Beneath that mask is a far more chaotic and fragile reality. They're not immune to the fallout of their actions, though they'd never admit it, not even to themselves. Betrayal forces them into a psychological disarray that most people wouldn't notice because it's buried deep within their subconscious. Imagine for a moment the intricate web of lies they spin to maintain control over their world. They tell themselves stories of superiority, entitlement, and invincibility, believing their narrative is impenetrable. But betrayal disrupts that. It exposes them, not to others initially, but to themselves. That exposure is like a crack in a dam, small at first, but impossible to ignore as the pressure mounts. Narcissists thrive on certainty, on the assurance that they are always in control. When they betray someone, they're not just betraying another person, they're betraying the very systems they've built to protect their image. They might not realize it immediately, but that betrayal sets in motion a series of internal conflicts that ripple through their psyche. Suddenly, the stories they've told themselves begin to falter. Am I truly in control? Did I miscalculate? What if this comes back to me? These thoughts gnaw at them, even as they outwardly maintain their posture of confidence. Their pain isn't the kind you'd expect. It's not guilt or remorse in the way you might feel it. It's a primal fear, a fear of losing the structure they've spent their lives perfecting. Imagine a person balancing on a tightrope, convincing themselves they're flying. Betrayal shakes that rope, and for a moment they realize they're dangling over an abyss. That momentary awareness terrifies them, though they'd rather destroy relationships, reputations, or even themselves than confront it. This internal chaos manifests in subtle ways. They might lash out more frequently, seek new ways to assert dominance, or double down on their manipulations. It's not because they feel empowered by their betrayal, but because they're desperately trying to restore equilibrium to their world. To anyone observing, it looks like they've moved on, unaffected, but that's not the case. The truth is, they're grappling with an identity that feels increasingly unstable. And here's where it becomes even more insidious. Narcissists are experts at compartmentalizing their emotions. They'll suppress their pain, bury it deep, and channel it into their external behavior. This might involve seeking out new relationships, gaining new admirers, or launching smear campaigns against the person they've betrayed. But all these actions are fueled by the same underlying truth. They're trying to escape the mirror that betrayal holds up to them. That mirror doesn't show them the invincible figure they like to project. It shows vulnerability, fragility, and fear. It shows them the consequences of their actions, not just in the harm they've caused others, but in the fractures they've created within themselves. And that's what they cannot stand to face. So they run, they distract, they manipulate, but they cannot escape the quiet moments when the chaos catches up with them, when they lie awake at night, their mind racing with thoughts they can't quite articulate. If you've ever felt like a narcissist moved on too easily after betrayal, understand that their apparent indifference is an act. They're not immune to the consequences of their actions. They're masters at hiding their vulnerability, but hiding it doesn't mean it's not there. Their pain is like a wound they refuse to acknowledge. It festers, spreading through their psyche, manifesting in ways they can't control or understand. And yet they'll never admit this pain. Admitting it would require them to confront the truth about themselves, a truth they've spent their entire lives avoiding. Narcissists are terrified of self-awareness. It's not that they can't see the cracks in their armor, it's that acknowledging those cracks would shatter the illusion they depend on to survive. So they push forward, pretending the cracks don't exist, hoping that if they pretend hard enough, they'll believe it too. When narcissists betray you, they sever a connection that once validated their existence. You might think they feel nothing for the loss, but the reality is more nuanced. Narcissists are acutely aware of the value they derive from their relationships. Your admiration, trust, and support weren't just perks to them, they were lifelines. Betrayal severs that lifeline, leaving them to grapple with the void it creates. They won't show it, of course. They'll deny it with every fiber of their being, but deep down they feel it, a hollow ache that reminds them of what they've lost. That loss doesn't manifest as sorrow or longing in the traditional sense. It's more like a gnawing emptiness, a realization that they've burned a bridge they might never rebuild. And here's the catch. Narcissists rarely dwell on what they've lost because doing so would force them to confront their responsibility for it. Instead, they focus on filling the void, seeking new sources of validation to replace what they've destroyed. This cycle of destruction and replacement is their coping mechanism, but it's not sustainable. Each betrayal chips away at the foundation of their identity, leaving them more fragile and desperate than before. They might not show it outwardly, but the toll it takes on them is undeniable. Their pain is silent, hidden beneath layers of denial and distraction, but it's there, eating away at them in ways they can't escape or control. When narcissists betray someone, they instinctively move to rewrite the narrative. It's not just about damage control, it's about survival. Their sense of self hinges on their ability to shape the perceptions of others, and betrayal threatens to unravel that. They know the truth is out there, that someone sees through the illusion they've crafted. This knowledge is unbearable because it means they've lost control, and control is their lifeblood. So they scramble, weaving new stories, casting themselves as the victim, the hero, or even the misunderstood genius who is forced into their actions. They're not rewriting the narrative out of malice. It's a compulsion, a desperate attempt to preserve their fragile identity. To them, the narrative is everything. If they can manipulate how others see them, they can maintain the illusion of superiority, even if only in their own mind. This need drives them to astonishing lengths. They'll spread rumors, distort facts, and twist events to suit their version of reality. They might accuse you of being the one who wronged them, or suggest that their betrayal was a necessary response to your supposed shortcomings. It doesn't matter how absurd their claims are. What matters is that the narrative shifts in their favor, that they remain the central figure in the story, untouchable and unaccountable. This process isn't just about deceiving others, it's also about deceiving themselves. Narcissists are masters of self-delusion. When faced with the consequences of their actions, they rewrite the narrative in their minds, convincing themselves they had no choice, that they were justified, or that the person they betrayed deserved it. This self-deception is essential to their survival. Without it, they'd have to confront the reality of their behavior, and that's something they're fundamentally incapable of doing. The truth threatens to shatter the carefully constructed facade they've spent years building. In their desperate bid to control the narrative, narcissists often seek out new sources of validation. This might mean forming new relationships, joining new social circles, or amplifying their presence in existing ones. They crave the admiration and attention of others to drown out the internal dissonance caused by their betrayal. Every compliment, every word of praise, every bit of attention they receive serves as a temporary balm for their wounded ego. But it's never enough. No matter how many people they draw into their orbit, the underlying pain remains, lurking in the shadows, waiting to resurface. The tragedy of this cycle is that it's entirely self-perpetuating. The more they betray, the more they need to rewrite the narrative. The more they rewrite the narrative, the more disconnected they become from reality. And the more disconnected they become, the more they betray. It's a vicious loop that leaves them increasingly isolated even as they surround themselves with admirers and enablers. They might appear successful, charismatic, and in control, but beneath the surface, they're battling a storm of insecurity, fear, and self-loathing. For you, this might be one of the most difficult truths to grasp. It's natural to want to believe that their actions are intentional, that they're fully aware of the harm they've caused. And in some ways they are. But the deeper reality is that their behavior is driven by a profound sense of emptiness, a desperate need to fill a void they can't even name. This doesn't excuse their actions, nor does it mean you should tolerate their behavior, but it does offer insight into the complex and often contradictory nature of their pain. This is where your power lies. By understanding the mechanisms driving their behavior, you can begin to free yourself from their influence. Narcissists thrive on control over the narrative, over relationships, and over emotions. When you refuse to engage in their games, you disrupt that control. You take away the fuel that sustains their cycle of manipulation. This isn't easy. It requires immense strength and self-awareness, but it's also incredibly liberating. When you step back, when you set boundaries and prioritize your well-being, you force them to confront a reality they can't manipulate. This is one of the few things narcissists truly fear, being left alone with their thoughts, with no one to blame, no one to manipulate, and no one to validate their distorted sense of self. In these moments, their silent pain becomes deafening. They might lash out, try to draw you back in, or seek new sources of validation, but your refusal to engage robs them of the control they so desperately crave. This isn't about revenge or proving a point. It's about reclaiming your agency and recognizing that their pain is not your responsibility. Narcissists are trapped in a cycle of their own making, a cycle they might never escape. But you don't have to be a part of it. By walking away, by focusing on your own growth and healing, you free yourself from their influence. You begin to see their behavior for what it is, a reflection of their inner turmoil, not a reflection of your worth. In doing so, you shift the balance of power. No longer are you a pawn in their narrative. Instead, you become the author of your own story, one that's defined by strength, resilience, and self-respect. This shift isn't just a victory for you, it's a profound loss for them. It forces them to confront the void they've tried so hard to escape, a void that no amount of manipulation, validation, or narrative control can ever fill. Remember this, betrayal doesn't define you, it reveals them. And while they may carry the silent pain of their choices, your journey is about something much greater, your freedom, your growth, and your peace. So let them face their truths in silence. Focus on your own light, your own path, because the greatest strength lies not in controlling others, but in mastering yourself. Take this knowledge and use it to break free. Your story is far from over. It's just beginning.